Rand. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars, the future of the franchise, as well as how big of a week it's been with the re-release of Revenge of the Sith, as well as the release of Andor Season 2, which was done about a week ago. So they released it. They're doing it arc by arc.
Arc
they
1.
released Arc 1. It's, I guess, the best time in a while to be a Star Wars fan. I
mean, as we've said, it's always just not ever going to be what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, it's still.
But as people that have grown up in the prequel era, going and seeing Revenge of the Sith in the theater was
I was gonna
pretty
say
awesome.
it's still exciting.
Still exciting
to, I guess, relive that that time 20 years ago when it was very exciting to be a Star Wars fan.
That sounded really gross. You said 20 years ago, but the one thing I want to appreciate about the anniversary of just any of the Star Wars movies coming back is you notice more detail about the movie
100%,
the more it shows
Well,
up.
this
on
was
the, big
the
screen.
first movie. Well, no, I've seen a few of them. I was gonna say this is the first one I've seen in theaters from the original 6, but I've seen this and I think Episode 1 now.
Yeah.
So only prequel films.
I saw Return of the Jedi.
Which that.
well,
I
little
wish
fun
I went
fact
to
for
that.
I think both of you know this, that the biggest re-releases in movie history
Is
were
Revenge.
Episode 1, now beaten by Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah.
which is done over 2,700
Well,
theaters.
I don't. Is it beaten yet? But I think it's on track.
No,
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 it's already
no.
beaten.
I'm saying in the
Oh, wow.
theater release, way more
with how
theaters
many-
are releasing
how many theaters they
Revenge of the
chose
Sith.
to release
I
it?
think the difference was it was 2,700 theaters for Revenge of the Sith, where it was 2,100 for Phantom Menace.
Well, that was
which is-
what 10 years ago.
Yeah,
at
that
this
was
point.
10 years ago. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I love that we're getting people in the theaters for a re-release like this. That theater was packed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Our
Let's
theater
talk
was
about
packed.
because we went to different theaters.
Yeah.
How was your experience?
So mine was very quiet and respectful throughout the movie, which I was so happy, especially how I just saw the Minecraft movie and how that was. But it was nice, though, at some of the scenes where people were quiet, let everyone else kind of soak in, being able to see something. And then
Yeah.
there was other moments, obviously, like the Mustafar scene or,
So hype.
even on Utapau with Grievous and Kenobi, people were saying the lines, and I was one
Quoting a
those
lot
people,
of the lines.
Yeah.
I
It's
was
bound to
joining
happen.
as well. It was.
At this
That was
point,
fun.
everyone has seen Revenge of the Sith. Although we did see a little child in our theater, which I think it was their first time seeing the movie.
Which is
awesome.
Yeah,
that is
props to
great.
that family.
What a
That's-
good
that's
dad.
pretty
What a
sick.
good mom. They
Yeah.
were just bringing their kid to see a goated film. You know what I mean?
Funny-
Kids these days don't have it good because their movies are Minecraft.
Funny thing about Star Wars. So one of my actually friends from school has never seen Star Wars. So he
That's
just watched Empire Strikes
Wow.
Back. Had no idea Vader was Luke's father at all.
Really?
So I sadly didn't get
How
to
is
see
that
that
even
reaction.
How do
possible?
you
Like
live
in
your
this
life
like
not
day and
knowing
age.
that?
Trust me, he had no idea. My friend said he had a crazy
That's kinda
reaction. They
crazy.
were watching it, by themselves.
Wait, just
I-
real talk, real quick. You have to not care about Star Wars at
Do you,
all.
well,
not
do
to
you
know
understand
that, you
how
know?
many movies?
Yeah, you
that
gotta
gets-
not care about movies.
Well, how many movies that gets referenced in though, and he never
Exactly.
saw it. So for me, it's if he catches up, he could get this. I could witness his first real reaction to Revenge of the Sith in theater as if somebody were 20 years ago. seeing
Yeah,
it.
it's not.
Which
it's
crazy.
still
You're
in
not going to
theaters.
see it. You see it a lot because
Not
most
done
people are
yet.
like, "Oh yeah, Luke and Vader, blah blah blah." He probably has no idea about Darth Maul. I was
That's
thinking about
special, yeah.
Revenge of the Sith, Order 66. I could see this with him first time.
Mhm.
I'll never see that with anybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of nuts.
it was nice to be in
It's
a
a great experience. I mean,
exactly. It was nice to be in a
Star Wars
communal
is never
special
going to
experience.
be what it was ever. So for people just to see the love that the prequels still have to this day is great.
Yeah.
We grew up in this era, and it's not the original trilogy. It's different Star Wars, but at least people are accepting it.
Yeah.
It took some time for people to accept the prequels.
If you count, shows, all the other extras, it's obviously the best era because of the depth included, but it's also the most milked out.
Well,
that's a lot of. I mean, I personally think the best.
I,
Era is
yeah,
the
I don't
original
know
era,
if you want to
but-
say best era. It could be the most. It is probably at this point the most fleshed out era, but it's interesting being in that theater. And also really I hadn't really locked in on Revenge of the Sith in a long time. Every single time I've watched in the last few years, I'd say I was a little distracted when I was watching it. You know what I mean? Texting or
Well, no,
stuff like that.
when
I
you
never
watch-
really had sat down and watched it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, just had no distractions, watched the film, and I noticed so much detail in it. Especially, I mean, I never saw it in the theater. The sound design is really impressive.
No, that's things that I really mainly noticed this time is one, the direction. I
Yeah.
think the direction is
Definitely by
so
far
much
the
better
best of
than
the three. Yeah.
Yeah, in the prequel trilogy, it's clear that Lucas had a lot of thoughts and really wanted to do these sequences because they're directed very well. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
really
well,
well.
they're
right off the
exciting
bat.
sequences. The movie
Yeah.
opens with one of the most memorable. I mean, for a lot of people, love the Palpatine rescue. Like, it's
Yeah.
just there's a reason people want to see more of it because there's a ton more out there somewhere.
Yeah,
The footage of it. But.
The impact of Revenge of the Sith also, I'm going to just bring up something that has to do with the movie, doesn't have to, is a lot of people played Lego games growing up, but sometimes didn't see the movie. But the scene from the first episode of Revenge of the Sith, that mission, literally in the Jedi Starfighters, a lot of people memorize that.
Yeah,
people who
just
were
memorable.
For people who
Nostalgia.
indulge in a movie like us, we're going to remember that opening scene. So it kind of, it has such a big impact in different ways. But also, it made me realize, for the time, like, there was, especially the bogus scene on Utapau, like, the CGI really wasn't that bad for 2005.
Well, some of it is.
Some of it.
I think
some
it's
of
like
it.
some.
No,
is
no,
No,
bad,
but some of
is
it is
incredible.
really impressive.
No, some of
like
it's
Yoda
insane.
specifically.
Yeah, look at Yoda.
Well, why do you
Yeah.
think I said Utapau was like pretty bad? Like
Yeah.
Obi-Wan on top of him. I mean, even the clones like. Was,
Well, a lot of the clones they don't look great.
Yeah,
because
they
it's just
don't.
they just look
Think
very
back to
rubbery.
2005. George Lucas literally created new technology for the
It was
Phantom
very
Menace in
ambitious.
99,
The amount
and by 2005, he couldn't do everything he still wanted to do, but he attempted it. He literally attempted.
kind
to
of
do
makes
what he
you think
wanted
of
to
like
do.
Avatar and what they've accomplished.
Yeah,
with that.
exactly. Think
Like,
about
watching
them
it
making the
again.
prequels now, like how
Yeah.
good it could look.
It would be
You know,
very
because
ambitious with the tech.
I don't
they're
even want to
using.
bring up the sequels, but I will. There's kind of no denying the sequels are the best looking Star Wars movies because they came out in the last 10 years and they technically look
I'll
incredible.
give you that
They
for the
do.
Last Jedi.
They
but-
The Last Jedi might be the best.
I'll give you
I'm
that.
actually going to say
Rogue
Rogue
One
One is the
is a
best
really
looking Star
good
Wars
looking
movie, and
Star
it's a
Wars
good
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
But Last Jedi is also a close second. There's some really
Visually,
good
it's-
shots visually
It's a
in that
striking
movie.
movie.
I want to talk about, especially since how I brought up, I thought the original trilogy. I'm gonna say this: the original trilogy, movie wise, is clear the best
Yeah.
era. When I'm saying like most mass everything
yeah.
together, I think it's gonna be the prequels. And now
You got
we
the
have
Clone Wars.
Well,
you
that's
know?
why I was
Yeah.
gonna bring up. But now we're continuing. Two other, prequel era shows
Mm-hmm.
are coming out. You have Tales of the Underworld, which is giving us Cad Bane's
Yeah,
backstory,
yeah.
more
We have
Ventress.
so much in
Quinlan's
between
boss.
3 and 4.
Oh,
now,
it's
you know?
crazy.
Yeah.
And then now we're getting a mall show. And
Oh yeah, wow.
think about this. Cad Bane, when he shows up in the Book of Boba Fett, he has a metal plate over his head. If you've been on YouTube before even the Clone Wars got finished, you knew in like 2016, 15, 17 that Boba Fett as a kid is in a standoff with Cad Bane,
Yeah.
shoots him, and he's supposed to be presumed dead, and he obviously shows up later with the metal plate in
Mm-hmm.
his head. We never got that episode. So what are we going to get in this, Tales of the Underworld show?
I mean,
I
I
kinda hope we
like that it's
don't.
fully kind of up to them to show where
Yeah.
Maul's story goes.
We
This
might
is
see it, might
something that
not.
we know where he, ends up. We know eventually how he dies, even. But I think there's a lot of ground to cover there where you can do some really
Well,
cool
like,
things.
well, how did he become a bum? Essentially,
Essentially,
again.
yeah. So, I think we got that.
That's interesting to see.
How do we
It's
feel about
gonna be.
Maul getting a show with Talon now? Talon was a comics, she was a
Well, I do. What I was about to
character.
bring up, the fact that kind of the current state of Star Wars, the fact that they pick and choose with some of the Legends stuff,
Yeah,
kind of irks me. You know what I mean? Like,
it's very strange.
for one, it's strange, but also just like
It's
the fact
frustrating
that-
for the fans too. It's just
the fact that that's really what a lot of the big Star Wars stuff with Disney is nowadays, is that they're setting up for this big confrontation with Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was a Legends character.
well, it
Like, it's
reminds you
weird.
of like people's complaints with like accuracy and adaptations as well.
yeah.
Or now like they're gonna pick and choose what to really have like for backstories for certain characters, what to keep.
I just feel like they
And
should
all
have.
the
There should
detail
have been
there.
a big conversation literally right when they got their rights. Been like, are we gonna use Legends characters? And if no, it's like, all right, then use no Legends characters.
Yeah.
Don't pick and
The thing
choose
is-
what you're gonna use.
The thing is, I'm gonna say with Thrawn, you already had him in Rebels, so for them it's just.
Well, I just mean in the past,
Just
like,
I
even
understand-
before
Yeah, that's
I
still
that.
understand
Disney
that, but
Star
now-
Wars.
but
Yeah.
I understand that, but for now is we have to talk about the future. Who?
Yeah, now it's- you
Chrysan-
gotta accept
I'm gonna
it,
talk
but-
about. I'm gonna talk about the most current one, like Black Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
From somebody who knew who he was,
Mhm.
out of the comics, it's like they kind of just nerfed who he was as a character, and he was just.
I
Yeah,
don't
now
think-
people
it
are
hasn't
upset. It's like
worked.
it wasn't even worth putting him
It
in
really
the project.
hasn't worked all the time when they're bringing these Legend stuff to live action.
I
'cause
do
it's just
like
not
the actor
done
they got
nearly
for
as
Thrawn,
well.
though. I thought Thrawn
Oh,
was
it
well
was great.
portrayed.
Mhm.
The show wasn't amazing, but I do think the guy they got to play him was good.
Cad Bane, I thought
Rebels
was
or Ahsoka?
a big. Ahsoka.
Both.
Both.
I mean, it's the same voice, right?
It's the same
guy.
voice.
It's the same
but I
guy.
thought you were talking about the live action version.
But it's the same
But
person.
yes, it is
Yeah,
the same person.
Yeah.
But my biggest issue with Cad Bane is you have one of the most notorious bounty hunters in Star Wars history.
Mhm.
how do you not have any real dialogue shared between him and Boba Fett? Like,
Yeah.
look back at the episode. 'Cause
Well,
I
that
did-
whole production
I
was
did
a
the other
joke.
day, and it's just, how is there nothing being shared? Like, no vendetta, no past, nothing.
There was no
brought
emotion
up.
in the whole show.
It was just like, oh my god, like they're finally squaring off, and it's like nothing said. You're
Well,
watching. It's
I
like,
think
what's
it's
the
no
point?
secret that was the biggest missed opportunity that they ever did because it's a Boba Fett show. Like it should have been awesome. Like it really should have been great. And I feel like they had all the building tools. Robert Rodriguez came back to do it. Like I feel like it should have been great. And
Yeah,
it
the
really
Robert
was a letdown.
Rodriguez. Yeah, he didn't fully understand, I guess, what he had to do there. It just wasn't. It's the first episode he directed with him.
Two
And
episodes
Mando
of it
was
just
great.
being Mandalorian episodes. It's just the
Yeah.
pacing of that whole season was just really off.
I don't
really off.
I don't
No,
understand.
it's just not good.
The current decision making too with Star Wars because nothing against Ryan Gosling. It's like, why are we? I understand they want to milk the sequels out, but if that's really what's getting the most complaints, why are you then adding stuff that, like, unless this has some big role in the storyline, like, what is the point of us getting that?
Well,
type of
no,
movie?
it's
Yeah,
it's
well.
just all about money. I mean,
It's-
Ryan
they
Gosling
want-
is one
yeah.
of the biggest stars right
Oh,
now.
100%. Well, he's been the past 8 years
And
by far.
we already understand that they're
Mhm.
milking this franchise. They needed something, I guess. I mean, after Mando comes out in theaters, they need some big release for the theaters. They generally don't know what direction to go in right now.
Yeah.
So
It's-
they got to feel like, listen, I think what they're doing is getting a bunch of filmmakers, giving them ideas now.
Yeah.
Where, listen, it's Sean Levy. I don't know what that says about what the quality of this film is going to be. I mean, he's
I
made some
think
great
Sean Levy makes
fun
very
movies.
fun movies.
Yeah,
Maybe not the best movies, but they're fun flicks. So if he just does a one-off Star Wars movie that's fun with Ryan Gosling, I'm kind of there for it. But I agree.
But
with
it's
you.
like-
where is
like,
this franchise going?
all
Like,
these new films go into everything that our sentiment about the Star Wars franchise, where it's just like they already ruined the specialness of it, that it's already taken away.
They pump
Yeah.
whatever
So
out.
now we're talking about it like we still enjoy some of these projects, but like we do understand that like
Yeah.
I mean I think just a lot of people agree that we'd rather them not exist, which sucks.
It feels like we talk about the MCU sometimes with how their shows have been hit or miss. It's
No,
like,
but that's different because the MCU literally caused Star Wars to be this way.
I get it, but I'm saying it just feels repetitive now, especially with Disney. how
Yeah,
they
it just-
pumps out, like what's the point of? And I'll be realistic here. I understand you're milking it. What was the point of Acolyte? What's the point of Skeleton Crew? Like, don't enjoy those. We don't enjoy Book of Boba
No,
Fett.
but
then we
also,
go, wait, hold
what's
up.
the point
Wait,
of
wait, wait.
Andor
Wait,
then,
wait,
you
let
know?
me finish. And then we go enjoy Andor. It's like you said before, it's hit or miss. Why are we getting
Yeah.
just...
But what do you
Well, I'm
say?
gonna
like,
answer
what's
both
the
of your
direction?
questions.
What's the direction?
I'm gonna
of
try and
going
answer
with
both
this?
of your questions right now. So, like, you're kind of saying like, where are we going? Because there's so much content, right?
Yeah.
But you're also saying like Andor, which is I think a phenomenal show. You know what I mean?
No,
in the
it
mix.
is.
I think the big problem with the franchise is there's such differences between the quality of all these projects that it's just changed Star Wars. It's what's changed Star Wars into a non-special.
Well, I just want to say
property.
for the record, because what I thought, Skolnick was going to get a little caught up with what he was saying there. Like, with Andor and all these things, because Andor, like, really, like, we know how it ends. We know where it's going and all this. A lot of people do complain about that,
Yeah.
too, with the series, where they're just like, yeah, like, what are we watching here? Like, why? This is kind of just, like, taking up time. Like, it's kind of just, a waste of time in a way.
I
But-
disagree because I think the smart people, well, not smart people, but the people who truly get Andor and try, like, it resonates with them, understand that it's just an important story. It's a story they're trying to tell about grittiness of war in Star Wars.
I don't
you know?
think that it
I think
deviates out from Star Wars as much as people think, but it does feel like its own thing.
Yes.
And that's why I love Andor so much, where it's like, yes, it's in the Star Wars universe, but I think it is such a special project in itself where it feels very singular.
Yeah.
And that's why I really think it's a special
Also,
thing.
just the quality of it. Like, Andor, production value, writing, acting, everything is top notch.
The visuals.
Visuals are top
Well,
notch.
they actually
And they
finally
know how to
made-
use their budget.
They finally made planets themselves interesting again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's
Agreed.
a huge thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And Andor, yes, it feels like its own thing, and it can feel very grounded and even down to earth at times. But I think it still kind of remembers the core parts of what makes Star Wars very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also like, it's funny where like, yes, it's a franchise for kids. We can admit that, but Andor is not for kids.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Where that's another reason where some
I think
people
that's
will
one-
hate it.
that's
it
a
will,
big
It will make or
gripe,
break
yeah.
what you're going to think about the show. A lot of people hate it for that reason, but it's not like where I'm like oh, we needed to have an adult project
Yeah.
in Star Wars. I don't even think there should be an R-rated project in Star Wars. I never think that they should bridge that.
Yeah.
I just don't think it belongs.
I think having an adult show it adds to my interest in the show, but that's not the reason I love Andor. I love Andor because of the storytelling and like I also think it's just perfect timing.
and
in
it's
the- in the
adult
galaxy.
in just like not
Yeah.
in like like violence and all that. It's adult in its approach to storytelling.
Yeah.
It's not a show that kids are gonna watch and fully be able to just grasp.
Yeah, they
everything
wouldn't even be
that's
able to
going
understand
on.
some of it. I agree.
It's very layered and it's very detailed. It's just it's not
Andor is a show that it's like when you watch the original trilogy, you kind of make inferences and like guess that this stuff is happening. There's a galactic civil war happening.
Yeah.
People are in distress. People are getting killed. People are getting assaulted. And you don't see that in the original trilogy. Andor is the place to show that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the galaxy was in turmoil. A space wizard took over the galaxy and didn't give a crap about what happened to anyone beneath him. You know what I mean? I love
But it's
showing
deeper than
the
that. You're
extent of
just
that.
looking at it as just like the straight, just like Star Wars lens. It's literally saying like, okay, this is what happened in that universe. Let's take a detailed look, really,
Yeah.
at like a lot of what goes into a rebellion,
Yeah.
what goes into an actual
No,
war.
it uses real life stuff. Like it definitely takes from actual wars and actual conflicts.
Yeah.
So it talks about a lot of things: propaganda, rebellions,
Sacrifice, just sacrifice
literally
what it
sacrifice.
takes to, like,
It also
put it-
delves into the Empire itself, which is something you never see in the original trilogy. Like you see the Empire, but you don't delve into the lives of an Imperial
well, like
officer.
the fact that it delves into day-to-day lives, of
day-to-day
people,
lives
you
of
know what I mean? Like,
Imperial
normal
officers.
stuff.
Where would you ever see that if not for Andor? Nowhere.
And that's also, part of the conversation where people are just like, why is this something I need to see? But like,
I love it.
I think it's just very
love
fascinating because also the characters are so strong where like you care about that.
Yeah.
You want to see what these people's lives are like. You want to understand what makes them the way they are.
Yeah, character-wise,
What makes them choose the
phenomenal,
side
and
they're
I also
on.
just want to say, no doubt in my mind, Cassian Andor is the best Disney Star Wars character. No
I'd
doubt.
say him and Kanan. I like Kanan a lot.
I just think
Jedi-wise,
he's
it's
fleshed out,
Kanan.
especially live action. All right, if you want to bring up the animated characters, there's a few.
I would have said Kanan if we were talking
Kanan's
about
great,
animated.
great.
I was talking I think Kanan's close to him in general.
Kanan-
I love Kanan.
If I had to do this, top 5 right there, just because like we're talking about it, I'd
Yeah.
not in order, but I put Kanan, Din.
Yeah,
I'm putting Cassian over Den.
Wait, Cassian. Well, no, I'm
Yeah.
putting
No,
Cassian.
but now
in no
just
particular
after,
order.
I am.
I just
But this is no particular order. But them, and then honestly, hot take, I'm put Thrawn in there.
I mean,
if he counts, if he truly
if he
counts.
counts. He's a Legends character.
That's also
but
gets back to my
still.
point before. Is he a Legends character or is he a Disney character
But-
now?
I'm gonna count.
well, that's a Disney version of Thrawn.
Yeah,
It's-
it's kind of
it's
a Disney
yeah.
version.
It's
of
Disney
it.
version of Thrawn, so that's why I'm gonna count him. But
Yeah.
it's just. It's
It's
so
tough.
confusing with this franchise right
Yeah, I
now
agree.
because I don't know how to feel because there's so many things that come out. I'm like,
Well-
what's the point of this? But then something great comes out. And it's like, but what are we leading up to?
Well, I
Like, why
think-
are we leading up? Why are we leading up to a Mandalorian
We don't always
movie?
need
I
to.
think
Why
what
is
we're
Rada the
admitting,
Hutt a
though-
Gladiator. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like what is the point of
That's
Rada?
gonna be
He
ridiculous.
hasn't been
yeah.
back since the Clone Wars movie, and everyone
Why
knows.
is Carmen Berzado playing him? I don't.
I
Yeah,
mean,
what is the reasoning?
it's unless there's a grander scheme of things. It's the same thing I was gonna say. Why, when we did the Acolyte, we were supposed to explore the Old Republic, but we didn't. So what is the point of Acolyte? What is the point of all these shows? It feels like some things are just being made just to be for money, and that we agree. The film industry is built on money, and it's the reality of it. And things are gonna get milked out, but at the same time, there is a reason for everything with the money involved. It seems like certain projects are just being thrown out there just to see what would happen. But
Well-
you're not getting good feedback.
yeah.
Well, it's
No, I mean-
interesting. I mean, we can admit already that. I mean, we've said it so many times. They've already taken the specialness out of Star Wars. It's
Acolyte was a
become
fucking joke.
But yeah, that's a joke. and
It really
whatever,
comes down
but-
to the teams of
You
people.
hired
working on
somebody
these
that never
projects.
saw Star Wars. They put Plagueis in it. Like, you could have easily just made it like its own thing and maybe not involve something. But like, who makes that decision? Oh, they haven't seen Star. Like, at least hire someone that understands it to an extent. You don't have to be like Favreau, Filoni, or even
Yeah, it's
because
because they rave about whenever they have a filmmaker that loves Star Wars, they talk about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so if you're like, yeah, you could get technical and be like, yeah, the filmmaker's good enough, like they should be able to make the project without even having that knowledge. But also like with Star Wars, no, you really can't say that.
You need to understand.
You got to at least understand what makes Star Wars Star Wars.
You
Yeah, I mean, I think the only person that really got it, at least the way I get it, is Gareth Edwards. Like, I just think he really
Well,
tapped
I think the
into what
team that
made
worked
it
on it's
special.
not just Gareth; it's that entire team.
Yeah, exactly.
That worked
It
on
comes down
Rogue
to the
One.
teams that are working on these projects.
Because we could always admit there's definitely people that worked on the sequels that really cared about the
Probably
original
someone
movies.
that worked on the Acolyte that really cared about Star
Yeah.
Wars, but
Like,
they
you
didn't
could get
have the end of
technical
the day
about
to
one
say what
person.
No,
happened.
100%. I was
The end of
I
the
was
day,
talking about
there's
one
always
person. It's
people
a whole
there.
team, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just it's things like that. They care about making money. Kathleen Kennedy does care about her paycheck probably more than what what people are going to say about what comes out the ratings. But at the same time, it's why would you just greenlight nonsense?
Yeah.
Because Star Wars is debatably one of the biggest franchises of all time. They know they're sitting on gold mines of stories.
It's also tough where you can't consider the fact that it's really hard to get these projects off the ground. So it's also crazy when they're churning, they're moving so fast.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
So it's like they're losing sight of it themselves. Like it's just obvious what's going on. But really, like, what would have to happen? Like, for you guys, what would have to happen to make this is it even possible to go back to it being a special thing, or is it too? There's just an overabundance of projects now, where we're kind of talking about this repetitively now, where it's like, like we still enjoy this franchise, right?
Yeah.
But we just acknowledge that it's never going to be what we wanted it to be or what we once felt about it. It's just not going to be that ever again.
Literally.
And that's
There
what
was
a lot of filmmakers try to capture, that feeling, even if it's just for a second.
Yeah.
And that's also very interesting, like Disney Star Wars in general. They wanted to capture the feeling of what the original trilogy was like more. I mean, especially the sequels. They trying to be the original. Like
Force Awakens was a reskin.
Exactly, and you can see
respectfully,
that.
And
And
it felt good, but it just I won't forget the first time I saw it. I really liked it. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I really
No.
I
People really, I agree with
I
you.
enjoyed it, and then
We all
remember
loved it
a
at
month
first.
after, because I was in middle school. I just for some reason watched A New Hope to Return of the Jedi, and I looked at myself.
Same movie.
I'm like, wow, this really is actually just the same thing, and it got
It's
me
the
excited
reboot. A
because
lot of my friends call it the reboot.
it
of Star
basically
Wars.
is though. It
Yeah.
essentially is with some decent differences, but it was just better quality of New Hope with worse writing. That's it, and it pisses me off because at the end of the day, George Lucas isn't sitting there like I want no involvement, and he's been on the set of some stuff. Wouldn't have been a bad
Yeah, he's
idea.
not
To,
involved.
it would have been, at that time he wasn't, but it wouldn't have been a bad idea to call him and be like, so what was your plan? Because at the end of the day, he has everything written down. You
Well,
could take a script.
We've
give it
said
to
this
Abrams.
already too, though. I mean, a lot of J.J. Abrams specifically stayed on. He was going to produce, George's films. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of George's DNA in the sequel. Not a lot, but there's a little bit of it in it. Especially, like
It's
Rey.
Star Wars. George
There was
Lucas-
going to be a female protagonist. We've
George
talked about
Lucas's
this
DNA
before.
is always going to be there if it's Star
No,
Wars.
but like just some story beats are
Yeah.
there from George.
What he wanted to do in the
Obviously,
sequels.
it's their own thing. I mean, J.J. Abrams did what he did.
He should have just. I mean, it's not good dwelling
No,
on it at
but
this
what I
point,
was
but-
trying to get to before, with it is that they tried to recapture the feeling of what the originals were like because of the reactions of the prequels, right?
Mhm.
And now this weekend, we literally see. I mean, our theaters were packed. I saw people dressed up, excited. People that even older people that a lot of people say that prequels aren't my Star Wars. This I just look at the original trilogy as Star Wars. I saw a lot of older people in the theater, mixed with people our age. The prequels have become pretty special to a lot of people.
No doubt.
They're very distinct and different. I mean, especially in the dialogue, the presentation of it is just jarringly different than the original, and that's why some people don't even consider them Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see in the past 20 years, this 20-year stretch that we've gotten to now, people people have either held a deep appreciation for it, especially people, who are our age at the time, but people who hated it back then have found a new appreciation for it in a different way, post-sequel. But also, now that the sequels are it's been 6 years.
6 years since Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Has it been? Yeah. Wow.
We've definitely seen that there are fans of those films. I'm not,
6 years since.
I
Guardians.
actually
Not saying
think
you
though
can't
I
be.
can tell that it's not going to be the same.
Yeah,
with the prequels.
that's what I was about to
I
get to.
can tell
It's not
10
gonna be
years
the
from
same.
now, it's not going to be a big. Oh my God, we were wrong. Like
No.
we're right. The sequels were not what they should have been.
No, and
They are not.
And back to what you were saying about how people are starting to appreciate the prequels more. I also want to say a big thing is those other projects that filled in gaps between 2 and 3.
There's a lot of
You
more
know,
added lore to those
and then it makes
now.
you look like, oh my god, like the story writing wasn't there, but the idea of the story is not bad. Like I'm gonna be real here. Attack of the Clone System, awful CGI and dialogue. I say it all the time. I make fun of it, but the whole idea of Obi-Wan going to Kamino, the Geonosian, but like
There's cool
some of
bits
those
in the
things,
movie.
like those, well, not even just those bits, but like the story isn't even that like bad. It's the dialogue makes it just not work.
Well, again,
it's not as fluid as it should
We
be.
talked about,
If that makes sense.
No, I get.
we talked about Andor reintroducing, like very interesting planets to the franchise once again. Actually, like that's a big part of Star Wars. The prequels had a lot of that.
Yeah.
Kamino, Mustafar.
Just the whole idea of the
Budapest.
outer
Naboo.
forget about that. The whole outer rim in general.
Yeah.
Like the prequels explored the universe more than the original trilogy, but
because we had the tech. They had the
Be-
technology.
Yeah, but then you go to the sequels and we got Jakku.
yeah,
It's a reskin of
Tatooine.
Tatooine.
It's like they didn't even do
and
anything
They
interesting.
didn't even
what's-
try.
What's the point of Exegol, honestly? What is the point of it? And then
You
Darth
can't even
Sid-
see it.
Darth Sidious then has like a random fleet. So it doesn't.
Yeah, that
make
wasn't even an
sense.
interesting planet. That was
It's-
just that was terrible.
It's just like, what's the point of
Yeah.
it? It looked like they were walking on nether blocks the whole time.
Like when
The
they-
most
they also
interesting
make
planet-
A casino planet. Like what are
The
these
most interesting
planets?
planet we probably
the
got in
Casino
those
Planet
movies.
Low-key isn't that bad of an idea.
Yeah, I was
because
gonna say it's probably that one.
that's like
Yeah.
not that bad of
But
a
like,
to me.
I just feel like it had no place in that movie.
No,
Like,
I agree, but I just feel like a Casino Planet.
It's not a
does
terrible
make sense.
concept for
It's
the
not.
universe.
Like, you gotta understand how corrupt Star Wars is.
Yeah,
because
there's a
it's
lot
not
of greed
like
and corruption.
You have one planet and it's different countries and governments. You have planets doing whatever the hell they want.
It was always also implied that a lot of people gamble in Star Wars
Yeah,
and
look
stuff.
at
So
the
it's good to
hearts.
see that,
Look-
Khan, I mean, you mean like with Lando, the game that they play.
Gambling is
back,
all over
yeah.
Star Wars. I'm not trying to just glaze the Clone Wars, but it's because there's so much content with it. I could just talk about how many things. But
Yeah.
look how many gambling issues there are in that show. You see it so much. Bounty hunters gamble, clones gambled at the bar. Like
Let's talk about gambling in Star Wars now.
yeah, I'm gonna start gambling now. But my point is though, there's certain things I like that they explored, such as that. But then there's others that just like why? Like why bother? You're gonna make money when Force Awakens comes out and everyone liked it. And you're gonna the other two movies.
Made a ton of money.
But they did. They made a lot of money. But now it just you see fans really getting pissed off and straying away and only holding to the old stuff. Like some people won't bother to see the new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, especially after Mando season 3, there's a ton of fans that probably like I don't even care anymore. And I don't blame
kind of me.
I mean, kind of me too. But I won't forget the Mythosaur was sick. The first 2 episodes, like didn't mind. The next, you're going into a filler episode with Christopher Lloyd. Yeah, seeing a Baldroid's cool. What's the point of that? Why am I seeing
I mean,
Jack
it just
Black
didn't
and
make
Lizzo?
sense, like the direction they went with it.
It didn't. There's so many fillers. Like the Mandalorian culture itself, you can write a whole show on just ancient Mandalorians. You know, you could do some on Paz. Like there's so
Yeah,
many.
they could have done a whole season with him without Grogu that actually explored like Mandalorian lore.
I
But
almost said
because
Paz. I meant to say
because
Pre-Vizsla.
Disney panicked and they were like, we have to bring the baby back, like it ruined what they had another special thing. Mandalorian was actually brought a little bit of specialness back to Star Wars.
1 and 2. How about when Luke showed up at the end and everyone was
That
freaking
brought
out?
that feeling back
Hype.
for a split second. Is
The-
what I was getting at
That was the
back
most hype.
before.
moment in
Dark Troopers being
recent memory.
Dark Troopers being canon was sick. If you really understood, like, not even just the lore itself, but understood where some of these characters come
Yeah,
from,
no.
it's awesome. A character I would have loved to have seen at some point, somewhere, would have been Dirge from, he was in the original Clone Wars. That was 2D, but
Yeah.
Dirge was a comic character. I have his first appearance. Like, he's one of the most interesting bounty hunters that another character could get brought back, hopefully in Tales of the Underworld, but they won't do it.
All right, hold that thought. We gotta pause the camera.
Yep, you're good.
We'll continue from right there. Yeah, Seth, we keep going, right?
I mean, I'm liking
We're
this.
still talking, right?
Yeah. You got it all?
I don't even know, to be honest. But
We'll figure it out.
if it didn't, then we'll just save it as a recording,
Yeah, I
All
guess.
Recording again. All right. Do you know how to continue from that, really?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Which was the time? Oh, Dirge. Yeah, there's so many other characters to single, goldmine with. You don't have to bring everyone in from, Legends, but it's like one thing that everybody always wanted because they already touched a little bit in the Clone Wars was the Old Republic. And Acolyte was one of those shows where rumored, we're going to explore the Old Republic. The poster's a lightsaber with blood on it. We might see Revan. We might see this. All these things. Cool. We saw Plagueis. Like, honestly, it looked scary. I'm not going to sit here and be like, that wasn't a cool visual. It looked great to see him. But you guys changed so much lore that it wasn't like, it's a little thing that can get brushed over. It's no. You
Massive
took Star
changes.
Wars and just stepped on it like it was a roach. You can't. Anakin was supposed to be the only organism that was created from another life force and put into somebody else. That was the whole point of his idea on how he was, Shmi became pregnant with him. You just did that like that. Like it was nothing significant.
Yeah.
Why? Why change
We literally
that? It's
called
bullshit.
they called Anakin the chosen one. Like he was like almost like one is in the title. Like right? Like what is going on?
And the whole point of it was he was the chosen one of that era to create who I will say is Luke. He brought unbalance to the Force, so then Luke can bring balance.
Luke the real chosen one.
No, that's what I'm saying. But the problem is with Star Wars, and this to put a nail in the coffin. This is the reality with it. They're gonna want to just make money with it now because they've made so much money. It's like, all right, we can just pump out all these different things, but until Filoni or Favreau's in charge, and it's gonna be Kathleen from now, it's not gonna go into the direction that it should go in.
Don't act like they don't have a lot to say.
They do, but
They have a lot to say
they
at this
do,
point.
they do, but at the same time, do you think they're gonna have more say than her?
But what are we really saying in this video though? Because like we've admitted they've already have such an overabundance of projects. So like, what would they need to do for you to say like I'm happy with everything right now?
If they could do anything I wanted, or just what?
No, literally.
What's
What
realistic?
would be
What do you
like
think could
making
fix
Star
Star
Wars
Wars?
good?
Really?
Like, could it
What
be
do you think
fixed?
Do you want something realistic, or like it's probably never gonna happen?
Well, yeah. Tell if it could never. What do you think could fix Star
If
Wars?
they were to ever want to really fix Star Wars and be like, okay, let's take a step back and actually fix it, anything goes. I would label George Lucas's Star Wars and Disney Star Wars. Meaning, this. And listen,
It's
you,
tough.
let him
you said
let
that-
him call.
I'll
you
let-
said-
I'll let-
I know. I'm not saying this would happen. I'm going to give you a realistic answer after this. I would label the sequels, Disney Star Wars, Acolyte, Visions, all under the Disney Star Wars category, especially on Disney Plus. George still kind of is involved every now and then. We see it. Then I would do George Lucas's Star
He's
Wars.
not really involved. What do you mean he's involved?
He's
Like
been
showing
on,
up
he's
to
been,
set.
He has shown up and say he still has. Dude, he keeps communications with Filoni and Favreau. You think they're not
Does
talking
he
about Star
though?
Wars?
I just don't think he gives a shit.
Well, all right.
Like we pushed it. Like again, something we've talked about
I do
on this
agree. I don't think George
podcast.
cares.
Like I'm not even trying to say like he doesn't care at all. But we put like the reason he sold it was because he just knew like he couldn't put more time into it. Like he was so like
I disagree with that.
he was just so emotionally like just drained from putting his time into a franchise that people gave him flack for.
Yeah.
They gave him crap for doing what he wanted to do with it.
I don't disagree, but I also think now that back to what I was saying. The plan was, I would say that, and I would then do the sequels the way he would have wanted because they seemed like they made so much more sense.
But we also don't know like fully what they were. I agree that I would want to see them over what we got.
Yeah.
But it's funny though with Star Wars fans, we're like they still might have hated it. It's like it's tough with
It's a
this
challenging
fandom where I'm like,
franchise-
there's a
fandom.
ton of great fans, great people that truly like just love the stuff that are not toxic. But then there's another half of this fandom where they're toxic.
When
and
you
they
get a
push
fandom
them.
that is as big as the fandom for Star Wars,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a lot
It's
of toxic
so
fans.
important to some people that
It's
a
just
good
inevitable.
majority of them really understand it even more than George at this point.
Well, do you want the real?
It's crazy.
do you
Like a
guys-
lot of them do.
Do you guys
he
want
doesn't
the
care.
realistic solution now that I honestly think that
Yeah.
they should do?
What do you
Like,
think could happen?
right now, I think you can't go forward. I think you kind of have to go backward. And I think you need to appeal and do something very fresh because we're at the point now where it's not predictable. It's just not great. It's like, cool, we have this coming, this. Bring us the Old Republic.
Yeah.
The Old Republic is very dark. You don't have to go rated R, but you could definitely almost bring back a Revenge of the Sith type of vibe where there was very dark parts of it. I mean, the Sith had a whole army. The Jedi and Sith were killing each other like clones.
Do you guys think they should just be releasing movies? Like, do you think
Well,
maybe
I
like it
got
should just
pretty
not be a
upset.
thing?
It's a little ironic because I got upset when Mandalorian was originally announced, like saying like, no, Star Wars should never have a live action TV show project, and I loved Mando season 1 and 2. You know, so it's like the franchise has changed so much now at this point. If you throw out a good TV show like Andor, I'll watch it because it's a
Yeah.
good quality TV show.
It's a good show in itself.
Exactly,
It
exactly.
just takes place.
If they were to
within Star
visit
Wars.
the Old Republic era like they did a little bit in the Clone Wars, you guys think it's going to benefit from a movie or a TV show more? Because you have some characters who are very essential to the Force, such as Darth
Well,
Nihilus.
I thought you just made a great point. I do agree. If we're gonna save Star Wars or bring it
Clean
back to
slate.
something, it's
Clean
not
slate.
even clean slate. Show us something new.
Well, I mean,
we
clean
need
slate as in
something.
something new,
Yes,
not
we
to
need
wipe
something
it.
completely new. And I actually, the part I disagree with you is that ain't the Old Republic. We need something fresh. Something. Maybe the Old Republic hasn't been shown, but there's video games of the Old Republic. There's lore of the Old Republic. We need something completely new that they can write a new lore for.
But those,
new characters.
But those video games also don't fit into the lore now, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying is there's a lot of it that does still
Yeah,
fit
it
with
could.
the lore. You
So
still
you think
can.
the right move is go back in time,
Like
do
an
the era,
film adaptation.
because
of
the
it.
era past the
There's-
sequel era is just
Th-
terrible.
There is so much you can write on the Old Republic, and it's kind of why it's like, okay, now they're just trying to throw things out of their ass. It's like you have something right there in front of you that makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
In reality, at the end of the day, they want to make movies, make money, make things easier for themselves to make money.
Yeah.
If you have something that's kind of fleshed out for you already, why would you not do that? And these characters are beloved
Yeah.
and wanted. You have merch for Darth Revan coming out through Hasbro and through all these companies.
Yeah, they are
consistently.
beloved characters.
It's like, why would you not?
Yeah.
Why would you not take
It's kind
advantage?
of like they're still sitting on a little bit of a gold mine that they won't really open up.
Especially, I'm gonna just preach Revan a little bit. You have a guy that was good, but like switch sides of the Force.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, his memory was, not there, but still, it's one of the most menacing looking characters.
I don't know. It's just me personally. I think the franchise. You might be mad when I say it, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree with this. I think it's moved past the Force. I think it's moved past these four. We've seen mostly everything we can see with these lightsaber wielding wizards. That's why I like Andor so much. There's nothing to be seen of the Force in that show.
I don't disagree, but the issue
Yes.
is the Force is always involved in these shows, except for Andor. But we have seen it on minuscule level, though. We've never seen the Sith in big numbers. We haven't, and the Old
That's true.
Republic is when they have it.
That's
We've
true. That's
never
something
seen
we
that.
haven't seen.
And it was genuine terror for some of those people. You understand? Did the Jedi and Sith were just going back and
But
forth.
again, call me weird. I'm going to stay with my stance here. I actually prefer just keeping that up to interpretation.
Yeah.
The Sith had a lot of Sith in the past, and that's good to imagine. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see that. That's just me personally. I get why you want to. I just don't really care.
I just would like to see Nihilus. Man was
I
named the
I
planet,
love the
the
rule
planet
of
eater
two.
for a
I
reason.
love that the Sith are, especially with Emperor Palpatine, they patiently waited to eventually show themselves again and take over the galaxy again. I just love that. It's like, it's up to interpretation that at one point this was a powerful group of people.
Yeah.
That there were a lot. But I like where we see them, where they're at during the Galactic
Yeah.
Civil War. I just find that
Not
more
everything needs
interesting.
to be shown.
I just don't
especially
think. I
when
think
we're
a
seeing
lot of
that
stuff doesn't need to be
wasn't
shown.
right.
Up to interpretation is like, I can imagine that in my head, and it's awesome. But good, I imagined it. I don't need any more than that.
I feel like what they could have been great if we lived in a world where somehow we got George to maybe even write the sequel trilogy, and other people directed them.
Yeah.
Interesting filmmakers could have got their hands on them, and it could have been something very special.
Almost like the original trilogy.
then,
George didn't direct the original trilogy. You directed the first movie.
This is
if you're.
this is if Disney still owns it. Say after that, we head into the TV space. We get Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That's very special. But then they're not trying to milk that into a film. Like something that they should have had a conversation about is like really what makes a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
And what originally cooked that too was that I love Rogue One, and I think it was great, but that decision to drop a Star Wars film every year set them up for failure.
Yeah.
Because that stripped everything away.
We should see a Star Wars movie every 5 years.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
at the
saying.
least.
I
At
think
the
if
least.
they waited, I think something that could actually help make it somewhat special again is if they just went radio silent for a few years. Not even said anything about Star Wars besides video games, maybe some, comics, books, whatever you want to say with it. But no movies, no TV shows for a couple
Just go
years.
silent.
Don't even just say eventually it's going to happen. Just reassure the fans because obviously there's always going to be people that want more.
It's truly.
That's the worst
it's-
part. There's always going to be
yeah.
people that still want more. But I think there's at least fans, like us, that can agree. Like, yeah, less is
sometimes
more.
better.
It
Less is more sometimes.
because
yeah.
we can sit here talking about how much we love Andor. And at the end of the day, I'd still rather it not exist because it just I'm not even saying it doesn't add anything. I'm just saying if that means we don't have to sit through all this other fluff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna. I
then
know what you're
then
saying.
it's fine.
If we got rid of all the sequels and that also got rid of Andor, you'd do it.
Yeah.
But
I
I would
love
not
Andor.
get rid of Andor, especially because I think it's the only good Star Wars project right now. It is actually.
Well, imagine
very
we
good.
just had just Rogue One and Andor and nothing else because eventually Mandalorian got ruined in my opinion at least.
Yeah,
They
it lost its
ruined what it
I
significance.
don't
was.
think it can. Yeah, I mean it's pretty tough, especially where season 3 ended. I really was not a fan. I think the entire direction in season 3 was pretty. It was basically directionless.
I mean, it was
so-
starting with Book of Boba to get to that. It was
was
just so
so-
jarringly
Yeah, it's just a
different
weird decision.
and
questionable.
goofy. It was goofy. It was really just really in
Well,
a bad
I
goofy
really
in a
think
bad
the true
way.
irony of this whole Disney Star Wars thing at the end of the day has been if they really had taken their time with the sequels
to make it special,
make
to
it special
understand
again,
what they had
then
was
they
special.
could have probably done what they're doing now and have bridge the gap between 6 and 7 and have that entire era to like do like a Mandalorian, like have shows like that would bridge the gap. The problem is that era sucks. That era is not interesting because of where it went in the sequel trilogy. No one likes the story directions that it has to go to. So they don't even want to touch that era like nearly that much because it's tough. Clearly that's the era they have to touch and that's what they're going to do. It's just tough because it's not written for them.
You're right. It's tough, where it's funny when, Force Awakens. I remember, exactly when the trailer for Force Awakens dropped, and we were reminded of like, oh yeah, they're gonna be trying to go back to what Star Wars was, like that original feeling.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here being like, oh, like maybe they should have went another, let George have tried to cook because we know it would have been even different than prequels.
It more or
would have
less
been its own thing
it should
again.
have been an amalgamation of the prequel era and the original era, not in the sense of like how the story goes,
Yeah.
but just like in the technical way that you make the movie.
If George,
Like it should have been, they should have
Do
taken.
we
both
think it
into
would have
account.
been another just CGI, like essentially a cartoon again? Like, do you think it would have just been a whole CG? Everything was mostly CG except for a few things.
I would hope not, because obviously I'd want a lot of practicalness. I think a lot, the stuff that they did with the practical effects in the sequels is one of its strong
Not that they're
points.
not there. Not
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of miniatures. There's a
The
lot of
strong
some
stuff. The
practical
strong
sets
stuff about the sequels is the visuals, both the practical and the CG stuff. So if they'd kept that route, but also the story was good, you know what I mean? Like it could have been great.
Yeah, some people did some great work on those movies. Let's not take that
I
away
just
from
realized something though, like you said about George. If he was involved, Rebels probably wouldn't have happened because Maul was supposed to be
the villain of
the villain
the
of the
sequel
sequel,
trilogy.
so Maul
Yeah.
wouldn't have died, or that would have happened. He just would have never met Maul.
Well, I was gonna say that the whole
Everything
it
would
would
be
recontextualize
different.
the
If George did the
franchise
sequels,
again.
everything.
a
would be
lot, except for really the Clone Wars, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
the Clone Wars would be, well, maybe not season 7,
Yeah, but the rest of it would have been the same.
The most
And Bad Batch
interesting
would have happened.
thing-
We probably have gotten a Delta Squad show, which I think we deserve that at least because they did a lot. They did a lot
Well,
in Geonosis.
You guys got to look at it like this too. With the prequels, he didn't really just also take it as a chance to be like, yeah, like let's just. We all know like, they're very different movies. He didn't added so much lore to those, where we know he was gonna do it again. So like that's where it's up in there in the sequels where we don't really know if his movies might have challenged people a lot again. But I think we still can agree that would have still been more interesting because like.
regardless,
Filmmaking
good or
wise,
bad,
and, movie wise, like
Yeah.
that's where franchises need to go. They need to not be afraid to change, because reverting back is what has brought Star Wars to where it is now.
Yeah.
It's a sad truth.
to bring I'm not even bringing your point back again, but you said 6 years since The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think I've watched one of the sequel movies in that span of time.
Nope.
I have
I've
not.
not gone to rewatch them.
I've watched
And
maybe Rogue One. A couple
I think
times.
before that I rewatched them a couple times. I've definitely seen Force Awakens and Last Jedi a couple times.
Yeah.
I have not seen The Rise of Skywalker more than
I
one time.
sadly saw it twice.
I do not
And
want to see that movie.
I
again.
wanted to see it a second time because of how much I hated the first time.
I
Yeah.
tried
I
to
wanted to
watch
give it
it
another
a second
I
chance.
want to be
time.
like, okay, maybe
respect
it's
that.
me. And I watched it, and I won't forget I saw it with KV and TV, and we hated it.
Yeah.
And then I saw it by myself a second. I'm like, okay, let me really digest this movie,
Yeah,
like D&D. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, like if
It's
we
really
took
bad.
George right when Return of the Jedi ended or Revenge of the Sith, and we showed him these movies,
Yeah.
he would have actually been like, wow, I messed up big time to sell it.
he would have been like, I shouldn't have made these.
He's like, I
Yeah,
should.
I think that is
Not-
actually a really
not
good
actually,
point.
but-
If I agree. If George had been shown those movies like before, like, and somehow we had
What
a
can I
time
do to
machine,
ensure this doesn't happen?
somehow we had a time machine and we showed George Lucas what Star Wars would become. He probably wouldn't have sold it.
He probably would. He probably would have sold it, or he would have been like, burn it all now. Like,
yeah, or
stop
just
it.
be like, you know what? No sequels. We're just gonna stop the franchise.
Yeah,
I feel
like,
that would have been better.
It ruins his hard work, but also ruins just I'm gonna say the idea of Star Wars. The idea of Star Wars is heavily centered on all the moral dilemmas, the moral aspects, the internal conflicts with all these characters. I mean, look at the clones, for example. I'm gonna bring them up because they all were supposed to be clones, but they all had individual personalities, individual
I wouldn't say
conflicts.
all, but when they focused on some of them, when they really wanted to, yes, they fleshed out a bunch of the
Well,
clones.
no, 100%. But I'm saying when you look at them between Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith, they're all just they're clones.
Yeah.
But then you go into the show and it's different.
Yeah.
Star Wars got fleshed out and brought
in
into
the
such
in the
a
right
different-
ways.
in the
when
right way,
Lucas was around.
and expanded in a way that made you really appreciate Star Wars for not just what it was, but what it taught you, what it stood
Yeah.
for. I mean, for example, this
Yeah,
has
that
nothing
was
to
what it
do
was
with
about.
this has nothing to do with the content. You could say the slides before every Clone Wars show has some of the greatest quotes you can really read and relate
Yeah.
to, and
Because Star Wars is a
What's-
lot about wisdom.
It is.
It is, and
It really
they
is.
knew that.
Wisdom, guidance, controlling your feel. Like there has always been a bigger meaning. Maybe not to George, but like if you really sit there and think about it, there's a bigger meaning to Star Wars, which is now when we watch it, it's like you're defeating all the purpose that has come before you.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, we don't want. Yeah, we like. There's just so much now where it's like it gets caught up, like what it's supposed to mean.
It gets
what
confusing.
It's supposed to be.
I feel like I have a fucking jigsaw puzzle in my brain watching some of these now.
So it's like that's tough.
I
It's
think
like,
we've just gotten to the whole point of our combo.
exactly,
Star
but
Wars
it's,
used to know what it was.
I can't believe
Exactly.
used to have a point.
Yeah.
we skipped over Kenobi too.
Yeah.
Look at
didn't
that.
even
We
talk
didn't-
about it
we didn't
because
even-
I just don't
project-
want to.
Even if it was different, would relate because it all had that central theme and that feeling of Star Wars. Now we're getting a bunch of projects that's all over the place. That is about a bunch of different things in the galaxy that they're not all the same vibe.
And for people that are going to say, oh, Mandalorian was like, no, Mandalorian had a lot of very similar traits and aspects to previous Star Wars things. It just, they didn't stray away from what the Mandalorian was. They tried to change it to be something it wasn't. And that's why I think Season 3 failed.
Yeah.
You only really felt, oh my God, like this is a Mandalorian when he was on Mandalore, when he was, with the mythosaur at the, at the ending.
Yeah.
There was aspects that made you think, wow, this is Mandalore. This is the Mandalorian. This is the culture. This is their tribe. Blah, blah, blah.
They didn't
You
go
never-
anywhere with it.
You didn't. You literally just put a rock in place, flicked it a little bit, and left it there and walked away.
Well, you can feel it now. I feel like the excitement for Mando 4 is nowhere near what it was
No.
for Season 3.
Well,
I'm not-
Mando, what the movie you mean?
Or the movie.
Yeah, it's not a season.
I'm not even.
It's a whole movie, and it's not nearly as
If
as
season
the
3
excitement
was
level as it
good
was.
and I saw the Rada leak, I'd be like, oh my God. Now I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Like
It's-
what is Rada the Hutt?
No,
to
what
do
should
with
have happened was what they should have wrapped. If really, like, I don't really think they should be releasing movies, but what would have worked, to make them a lot of money would have been finish it at season 2, make a movie just called The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Don't have Grogu in it at all.
Yeah.
Probably would make more movie than a movie that has both of their names in it, which
Mm.
is crazy. That just shows you they didn't understand where to bring this.
Yeah, clearly.
Bringing Grogu back was just such a mistake, and it ruined the story that we followed him on.
Yeah.
It made it mean nothing.
You should stay with
And it was all taken back in 2 episodes of a different series.
Yeah, it
Should've-
doesn't make any
should've-
sense.
Didn't make any sense.
Should have stayed with Luke. Ahsoka wouldn't have met Mando in it, and it would have went its own direction.
Yeah.
It's also tough where it's like, yeah, like someone could be like, yeah, like Baby Yoda's just doomed to a fate of, he probably would die. But also,
Okay.
that's tough. I mean, it's like that's where they brought the franchise to say the Jedi die again. Like, it's like, what's going to happen to him now? He's hiding in the sequels. Like, we know that he would live to be like probably like 1,000, maybe more. It's just confusing. You know what I mean? It's just,
Franchise
some of the
is
decisions.
lost itself, really, and it's going to take. It's gonna take something big. It's gonna take something big to bring.
I
well,
don't even
I'm
think
curious though. Are people really excited? I'm not gonna take that away from them. People might be very excited because again,
Well, it's such a large fandom that you're still
exactly.
gonna have diehard
It's still.
fans.
I was trying to say again. It really still surprised me. Just like we have our opinions, but like some people are just so strong. Like there's part of Star Wars that they're so toxic against it,
Mhm.
but there's still some people that are really, really, they really love the Disney Star Wars era. They just do. There's always going to be people that still love it. So I don't want to take that away from them. And I'm trying to be critical and say
These
what
are
my
just our
opinion
opinions.
is.
These are
Of
just our
course.
opinions.
I just want to bring that down after we've just talked about this for, I'd say, even a good while, like probably 40 minutes now,
Yeah.
We're talking about Star Wars and just our, problems with it and what's happened. Like, this is just strictly our opinions. And yeah, we're saying this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
But, we're curious, what do people really think? I love having conversations with different types of Star Wars fans. Because listen, there's a lot of people I've talked to now that think The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie. And I think it's the worst.
I haven't even
Yeah.
heard anyone
That is
say
a wo-
that yet.
And,
I have
that's
definitely come across people that love it.
No, but, like,
You think that
maybe
as
not.
the best. Listen,
Maybe not the best.
I
but
haven't.
there's-
I
I've
can
met
hear-
interesting Star Wars fans. I've met people that think Rogue One's the best movie. You
That's
know,
not
it's
that bad to
Yeah.
take though, because you can understand.
it's
the
an interesting
significance.
take.
It's
though.
interesting, but it's not as bad as saying like Last Jedi is the best, not your favorite, the best movie.
A lot of people do think it's the best now.
I'm gonna.
You can get offended by it, but a lot of people
right
think.
now. Rage clip right now. If you think the sequels are better than any other trilogy, you are wrong. Done. I'm putting it at that. I'm sorry. You could say it's your favorite, but to say it's the best.
Well, listen.
And to say
We're talking about the movies individually. We can just we just said it's our opinions, but like it's obviously just the fact that the sequel trilogy was just a little bit mess, like just behind the scenes. Like they didn't know where they wanted to go.
It's not a
with it.
complete trilogy.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't work as a trilogy because the movie that follows what we're talking about, 8 was a lot of people's favorites. But for some people, it was so jarringly different
that they needed
it
that
offended
9,
them that they needed to jump back on certain things in 9 to please people.
Yeah,
that's how But like, there's still a lot of really positive sentiment towards 8, and I could admit, even as someone who really did dislike that film, especially like I saw it opening night. I just really was taken back by just how much it wanted to do something with the character of Luke that I thought shouldn't have been explored with him specifically. I understood what they were going for. It just didn't really make sense for Star Wars. Yeah. But also, for some people it did. And I guess I see that now. A lot of people, it got through to them. And I can admit that 8 is probably also the best filmmaking-wise of the 3. It's also the one that actually has some interesting ideas.
I give credit where credit's due with that movie. There's some... I don't want to say any narrative. I don't think any of the narrative choices are super, super strong.
Yeah.
But I do think
some of the thematic choices are interesting.
Some of the thematic themes in there are solid. Rian Johnson did some few things with the direction. That's interesting.
Some are too repetitive as well.
And it's all. But at the end of the day, it really struggles narratively, and that's what matters to me at the end of the day, especially with Star Wars, with an overarching story that's called the Skywalker Saga, a movie that challenged you so much to rethink of everything about Luke. It's too much.
For the record, I do think. I mean, I'm probably never gonna watch either of them again, but I think 9 is a even way larger jump into terribleness. Yeah, I just think that movie specifically has nothing good
mess.
The thing
going
that
for
pissed
it.
me off is when it was all the Jedi voices saying like, "Oh, we're with you, Rey," or whatever that line. I want to say this. The whole point of being a Force ghost is not every Jedi can do it because of how hard it is.
Yeah, so and that's established in the main movies.
That is
that's actually in the movies.
So, that's what pisses me off.
That's not even a thing from what I'm saying. It's not from the cartoons. It's in the movies.
It's in the movies. Yeah. Like the whole point of it is it's not that easy. You hear you hear all these extra Jedi, and I'm sitting there in the theater.
I mean, for you to talk about continuity in there, come on.
Yeah, they weren't caring about that. Yeah,
we're talking about a movie where
they did such jarring things for the franchise.
I don't disagree with you.
Like,
I don't disagree with you, but
all logic went out the window.
I get that, but I'm saying for fans are saying it's the best written. It's the best thing. Your favorites.
Well, I mean,
you're talking about Last Jedi.
I don't know if anyone that says
that's what I'm saying. Rise of Skywalker is a big jump.
There's people out there. I see them in the comment sections, and people are like, "Oh, you just hate Daisy Ridley." No, love Daisy Ridley. She got sabotaged by awful writing.
If anyone listens to this
and
actually thinks 9 is the best, please comment why, like a detailed explanation.
I would have a very long conversation with someone who thinks 9 is the best.
I would love to.
I would let you talk for like 30 to 40 minutes because I would just genuinely want to hear your
I want to hear
points.
them out. I really want to hear them out.
But I have a very strong opinion on Star Wars from somebody who has watched and read books, read comics, listen to the audiobook.
You're a big Legends guy.
Listen to the audiobook of the Black Wing Pirates. Like, there's so many other things I have explored deep into Wikipedia and everything. But the point is, why do you think it's the best one? To me, it doesn't make sense. But I'd like to hear somebody's opinion.
Like for 8, I was saying for 8 is that like I can kind of see what people are trying to say. For 9, I genuinely I could never. I can't even pick anything from that film.
I give credit where credit's due of Last Jedi. There's some awesome choreography fight scenes in there. Awesome flying scenes in that movie. Awesome. It looks incredible. But then you get down to the narrative choices and you see Princess Leia flying through space. So it's like
nothing.
I don't know.
It also like starts with like a Yo Mama joke.
I mean, I do know. I don't
has
like
things that are just so jarringly out there.
Nothing made me as mad though as the Obi-Wan show, because at least the sequels are like, all right, we could stray away from the sequels and just like do other stuff. It's like, why is Obi-Wan meeting Leia? Why is this happening? Why is this like you see?
Why did they think that was important?
You got to see a flashback of Order 66, and you're looking at this like, oh my god, this is gonna be like such a promising show, and then it's like they're playing cat and mouse. They're playing Tom and Jerry. Like at this point, it's like what, like why? And then it was great seeing a stormtrooper get cut in half. Like you get to see some cool things out of it, but the story itself. What
Wait,
was the point of Obi-Wan?
Can you guys remind me though? Does that show make it so that Leia like doesn't know it's General Kenobi, or like she does?
I've tried to just.
Yeah,
read
I don't
that
remember
series.
it.
And-
It's like, but it's like muddles that message from A New Hope. Like, what is that?
Obi-Wan
you know?
fighting, and she even says that she never met Kenobi in A New Hope and all this. So that's
Exactly.
why I don't.
That's why I was
understand
asking that.
And
I was confused.
I think it leaves it off where she doesn't know that's over.
You remember the scene in that where he like literally
Vader
hides
versus
her with
Kenobi.
with his cloak?
Cloak, yeah.
That's crazy. You got there has to be people filming that are just like, this is really out there.
Yeah,
This is really dumb.
Seeing Tamara Morrison come back though, also as a 501st Trooper, was very interesting. 'cause
There's
that
some
was the
parts
first
of
time-
that series that I had
That's
a
the
grin on. Fan service.
I just think
parts, sadly.
overall bad show.
Yeah, it
was
just
the
should have been
first
good. It should have been
non-CGI
made with love.
First non-CGI clone trooper suit right there.
Yeah, it's
Right,
great.
first time.
It was in
I
Obi.
like
that
that
was.
was
Oh
there.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
in
no,
the sequences in
Yeah,
that show
and it was
too.
like
yeah.
pay for a vet. But the point is though, there's a lot of stains they're leaving on Lucas's like ideology and legacy. It's just like, to me, it's
Too far gone.
We're at the point where, and you said before, what big thing could happen to save it? No, it's gonna need to be consistency and multiple big things. You can't just do one thing. Like, oh, we're saved, absolute cinema.
That's actually
Clip
probably why us specifically.
true.
I mean, like we had Clone Wars and they finished Lucas's vision with that very well. Also, that's Lucas's family's vision essentially too.
It was beautiful.
But
I cried.
I think the reason we like Andor the best right now is because that doesn't pull from Legends. That doesn't try to pull.
They're
things.
trying to do their own thing.
It's trying to be its own thing, and that's why I think Cassian's the best Disney character, because he's a character created just for these movies. That it actually really worked.
That's why
It's
Mandalorian
great.
was so good, season 1 and 2.
Exactly, and now I don't think
But-
the same because of
but-
what they've done. But
They don't want to be independent. They want to tie these characters into the bigger thing, so more people
Mando
watch
is a
it.
world there that, like, yes, it probably would, end up tying with legend characters and like Ahsoka, it's stuff
I
like
wasn't
that.
talking about that. I was talking about like the main.
But
the
the
main-
way in which they did it, it just wasn't great.
Yeah.
It's still more to come, but I don't think my opinion's gonna change.
What do we think the horror Star Wars movie is going to be? Didn't they say they greenlit
They
one?
said they might be doing that, and
I'd
I
be
still
interested.
think.
Again, I think we need new things. We need.
I don't know if
different
that's
stuff.
really needed as well, though.
I don't know if that's what we need.
Because
but we need
guys,
different
we
stuff.
love Andor. That's already a big jump, tonally.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
I'm just
That's the kind of stuff we
give
need.
me the Black Wing
Yeah.
virus at that point, or Geonosian zombies like that they did in the Clone Wars. But like, what's the point of doing a horror movie?
Yeah, it's like, why do you even want to bring
The
that
only
and
other horror
associate it?
movie I'd really want them to honestly do if they wanted would be a standalone Grievous movie, but not make it like a horror like a.
Yeah, but like, why would
movie.
we need that?
I'm
Also,
not- I'm
it's
saying-
like, why do we
I'm
want
saying
that?
I'm just saying if they were to really greenlight it, that's one that would just make sense.
But that's a
because
character that's cool because of the mystery behind him. Like, I don't need to know
Well, he's got
anything
a tragic.
more about
He's got a
him.
tragic history. My
I'm
point
sure he
is,
does, but it's cool just
he's
like
scary.
thinking about it.
I meant like if they did like Jedi being sent down, having to deal with Grievous first experience, no one knowing he is, like that would be a
That'd be
horror
cool.
aspect. And I wouldn't say a horror movie. I don't want like no, Conjuring version of facing Abeloth.
You're thinking of like
Horror
the
elements
depiction
within a
in
Star
Grievous
Wars
in the
thing.
Tartakovsky
Yes,
series,
exactly.
like how he is like a
Well, he's
scary
still-
figure to
he's
the
still
Jedi.
scary in the
Yeah,
regular
that's
Clone
fair.
Wars,
Yeah.
anyways. He's
Yeah,
still
he's creepy.
scary. My point is I wouldn't want them facing off like anyone against like Abeloth or someone from Legends who's like actually or the
Grievous, in a way,
or
was
Star
the
Weirds.
Vader of that time. Like he was the enforcer
I
of
I mean, he's
the
meant to
Separatist
kind of
army.
represent that.
And yeah, he is
Robot part
the
of
representation of Vader's robot side,
Well,
which
yeah.
is I think he's an interesting character. At least we got him for a little bit in Revenge of the Sith.
I just
too.
want no
Yeah, very
Abeloth,
interesting.
no Star Weirds, none of that. Like none of the actual horror elements
Yeah.
that are in Legends or anything else. That's what I'm saying. If you were to go horror route, explore something that would be scary, but not like Star Wars doesn't need a horror
Again,
film.
still for kids mainly.
Yeah, that's my point.
Even though we can admit there's adult projects, I
No.
think.
So I'm
you
saying
know,
don't go
I-
the horror side of it. Like do something like scary, I guess, like thriller wise maybe,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
don't go
Yeah, it's
horror
just.
film.
I think the main last thing I want to say just regarding this is, it's a shame because I would choose Lucas's stuff to exist over this too, because we've gone in on this a lot in the pod as well. Kids deserve originality, good or bad. They deserve to have their Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It shouldn't have ever gone back because the new generation deserved their Star Wars, not a reboot of Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's the shame.
It's a damn shame.
And it sucks, we'll never get to know what it could have been. And it sucks because there's so many videos of them talking about it.
yeah.
Even in the 90s, like Lucas wanted to do it. He had his heart in it and making it a 3 trilogy thing. And the fans shattered his heart.
It's the
sucks.
fandom that did
It's
this
not
to
Disney
themselves.
that did it. It sucks.
fandom.
He kind of brought it to where it is.
Yeah.
But it's funny. We got a really great week to really remember what it was like
Yes.
to love Star Wars.
I agree.
And to be with people again, just a communal experience with Star Wars fans where we all enjoyed the thing that was on the screen.
We
It
enjoyed
wasn't
it.
any.
That's
It
true.
was all joy. It was no problems. It was great to have that feeling again. I'm sure you guys agree.